How much of risk are we into right now? Because I can imagine that this could be huge. When you say that 42,000 houses are built in Lagos every year?
Yeah.
And what percentage of this goes through the right process?
Conjecture. It's all up to conjecture.
You know, for those who say that, you know, we like to do the right thing, but some of these agencies that government put in place, they make it difficult for us because some of them say that when those agencies come in or when the professionals also come in, it costs an arm and a leg to put some of those things in place. If government control agency comes in, they ask us to pay this and pay that. If we perhaps see how we could circumvent the process, we all keep going on. So have you faced that kind of experience? Have you heard people say that?
Yeah, sure. We submit buildings for designs for approval, and we know we go through a lot of bottlenecks. We go through a lot of silly things. So government has to audit their building delivery process, the building approval process. They have to audit. If this thing is not serving the populace, then you should audit because you are serving the public. And obviously, it's very clear to all of us that there is a failure somewhere. There's a failure in government, there's a failure among the professionals, there's a failure among the artisans, there's a failure everywhere. So unless you do a clear audit, we're not a serious society. For crying out loud, we're not. If we are, then this shouldn't be happening. Because it's happening, it means logically that we have failed.
Now, this audit that you're talking about is clearly not just for Lagos Island. Because for just last year, within 1 month last year, about 2 buildings collapsed in 2 different areas of Lagos, I think Agege and one other place like that. And we have pockets of areas like that that have, you know, clusters of buildings, you know, like this. How vulnerable is Lagos, and which areas do you know from your experience have this vulnerability that need to be addressed urgently?
Okay, first of all, Lagos is vulnerable because of the population. So many, you cannot deliver as many houses as people need for their accommodation. So a lot of people do self-help. They just go ahead and put buildings anywhere, put shacks anywhere, and that dovetails to the fact of some people have some little money, they put up a building without following the right process. So because of the population, you are vulnerable. Buildings come up that are not safe. Secondly, Lagos is very close to the Atlantic Ocean. And because of that, the quality of the soil is different from what you have in Kano. It's different from what you have in Abuja, in Enugu. The peculiarity of that soil has to be addressed during the design process by structural engineers. So we are vulnerable by virtue of the kind of...
Are you talking about all of Lagos or just certain areas?
Certain areas.
Such as?
See, water is everywhere. Like, for example, this environment, you know, it's, you can't put any building that is less than a raft foundation in this environment. It's structural if the soil foundation is properly done. So many areas beside water in Lagos. Lagos is a water environment. So one way or the other is vulnerable. Then again, we are vulnerable by the way we live, our practices.
How?
Our practices as how do you procure your house?
Okay, because I was going to ask.
Yes.
Because I heard people say it and do it. I thought, now, come on, maybe that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
When they want to build a house, they just get people, not architects, to draw.
Yeah.
And they go build. I thought, no, that can't happen. That's ridiculous.
But it's happening. It's happening. That's why the building control process is important. People just do it. Number one, people are not educated enough. There's no advocacy, enlightenment, you know, engagement enough, which is what we keep doing. Like right now, some of us are in other television stations all over Lagos, all over the country. Some are, after now, I'm going to leave for AIT, Ray Power. We are doing a lot of advocacy. But we need to be assisted. We're a private organization. I have my own practices. But I'm the president of this guild, and I have to deliver.
Well, so, as a follow-up to what Chamberlain said, if you have a mason who has had up to 20, 25 years of experience and has built houses that have stood the test of time, why would I doubt such competence?
A mason is not an architect. A mason is not a town planner. It's not a builder. A mason is a mason. It's an artisan.
So what about the houses he has built over the past 25 years that nothing has happened to them?
Well, until something happens, you will know that the process was wrong. But you cannot know the process is wrong because he has built. But don't let's forget something. Before the white man came, we used to put up buildings. And we used to do it through communal effort. In my town, you know, there was a particular man who was very renowned, and in those days he used to be the one to approve. And he would write Eyidara Odudu, which means this is good, continue. That's building control. But now that we are more scientific, now that this is a more evolved society, we should evolve with time, and we should be more scientific in the way we are delivering these things. You can't just walk up. There are legislation to that effect, that you can't walk up to just anybody and the draftsman put this thing together. This is what I want to do. Then you go to site and you start building.
When you talk about auditing the process, what exactly, for Lagos State government, what exactly are you talking about?
Number one, planning approval. Number two, building control. Number three, urban renewal.
Okay. There are human beings involved in the process.
Yes.
What do we do with these human beings? Because, I mean, it's human beings that ought to have prevented this from happening in the first place.
Repercussions. You have to sanitize the process. You have to, you definitely have to punish. If you don't punish, you don't leave an example. Because when these things happen, buildings collapse, people die. There are fatalities. Loss of lives, loss of property, a lot of terrible things. Life and limb.
What are the architects doing to ensure that people don't just give anybody to draw a plan for them who are not architects and then go build with it?
Advocacy. We keep telling them we're engaging government. The Nigerian Institute of Architects has been at the forefront of this for a long time. And we've been saying you cannot put up a building unless you cannot design, unless you're an architect. Because we are the master builders. We are the visionaries. If you don't visionize a building properly, you are preparing for collapse.
Okay, help me understand this instance. From your submission, how would you view this situation? Because I know of someone who had his own building drawings by an architect. After the architect gave him the drawings, he got the approval from the government, but went ahead to get a mason and supervise the mason to start building. And the building is standing erect, looks very perfect. It's perpendicular to the horizontal, and it looks really nice, I might say. But what would you say, because there are thousands of such people who go ahead to get the architectural designs ready and go ahead to personally supervise or get a friend to supervise with them, and they have the structure put up? Is that a risk?
Faulty process. Until that building comes down, you think it's a good building. The process is faulty. Get the architect, get the structural engineer, then you get a building consultant to advise you on buildability. Meanwhile, you've already done all the necessaries. The surveyor, the land surveyor has already surveyed the land, giving you the land. The town planner, the architect is going to key into the urban plan. Like I was talking about urban renewal. There's an urban renewal plan, there's an urban plan. So the architect keys into the town planner's urban renewal thing. And then you go ahead to award that project. However small, a 1 million naira house, a 100 billion naira house, you award it properly. And the professionals that are trained to deliver the building are brought in. When you go and look, all these artisans are very useful. We are doing a lot of trainings for artisans at BCFG. So they're very useful. But they are useful only within the scope of their competence. But when you now take somebody who has 30 years as a mason, and then to come and build your house, you are writing a letter to collapse. Because he doesn't have the total control or the total knowledge of the engineering process. He doesn't.
Okay. Mr. Akinola, you saw the aerial view of Macy Street or Massey Street. How vulnerable is that area from the aerial view that you saw?
And what should be done?
And what should be done now? Look at it.
Urban renewal. Let us re-engineer that society.
How costly would that be for the Lagos State government?
How costly?
Lagos
This is a scientific process.
Lagos State government has resources for almost 30 states. So,
however, whatever it costs, it cannot be as expensive as a human life. And all the potentialities of that human life that had just been destroyed.
So concerning those images, you were going to talk about what should be done in that particular case, that area now.
Where is the whole of Lagos Island? We're talking of between Eco Bridge and Third Mainland Bridge. Wow. Down more or less, and then the Atlantic Ocean there, and then Ido to the south. I mean to the north, that more or less describes Lagos Island for you, is all traders' haven. Most of the buildings there, including the NIDB building, up to 12 floors, from ground to the top floor, they are all traders' haven. So what should be done? There should be a new urban renewal process set in motion, involve all the built environment professionals. Let us redesign Lagos Island. Now, secondly, do an integrity test of all the buildings that are there. You know, the urban renewal design process will address all the closeness. You know, the integrity test will address those buildings that are sick. And those buildings that are sick, remove them. Thirdly, how do you now sustain? Because you have to be sustainability. How do you now sustain what you have evolved? So you have to create a lot of breathers within the urban setting. You have to give, design a lot of parks that will allow the city to breathe. You have to create a lot of, water, environment, fountains and a lot of things. You have to do a lot of things that will reduce the stress both on the human and the buildings. We advocated that there should be a codification process. Every building should have a name. Just like in the UK or most of these countries, everybody has a number. So every person, individual should be coded. Every building should be coded. Every land, the site should be coded. So when you have a codification process, building procurement does not become a problem anymore.
Is Eco-Atlantic a good place to start?
Why are you saying that?
I mean, it's a new urban project.
Yes.
The buildings are still coming up.
Yes.
I hope that people can afford it.
Well, that's another thing. But Eco-Atlantic is a project that is properly procured. I have my own personal reservations about how, because the flooding in Lagos, there's a way the land that was claimed for Eco-Atlantic is infringing on the estuary where the water is supposed to come out.
So it's okay to have a replica of what is there now on the mainland where we have hard soil. But what stops the government from going that way?
Yeah, why not? Why not? That's part of the urban renewal process. It's part of the urban renewal process.
Okay, let's wind down with this one. I mean, is there anything that families of those who had children they could have done
before
the collapse? Because if it had been marked several times, what option did they have? Because some of the people who thought, well, people actually see some of these things, but if they don't see the markings anymore, they assume that maybe government has sorted themselves out. So what should one do in that case?
Number one, when you see government marking on a building, you already know something is wrong. You withdraw your child. Or when you see government marking on a particular estate, you know something is wrong. Anything can happen. Like, for example, I went for a meeting in one building in Lagos Island. I will never enter it again.
That's because you're a professional. But some see the markings.
Cracks all over the whole place.
And they don't see the markings anymore. It looks good. They thought, okay, maybe government has certified it. And then they carry on as though it's business as usual. Because nobody wants to put their child there deliberately for them to die. What should they have done?
Education, advocacy, enlightenment. A lot of engagement. You engage government, you engage the people. Right now, I know a lot of people are focused on channels. Channel is a very popular television station. So a lot of people are focused on this particular program and they're listening. When such a thing is happening or about to happen, I'm sure people will take precautions. People will understand that you have to procure your building properly. You have to patronize the professionals, and government, especially government, should engage the professionals in the way buildings are delivered in all the states all over Nigeria.
Which is very important because, I mean, ultimately, you don't want to be faced with this kind of scenario because you think it's going to be too expensive. So it's better to be safe than sorry. Well, we appreciate your coming on, and we wish your guild all the best. We've been speaking with George Akinola, the president, Building Collapse Prevention Guild. He's also an architect.